Hello friends, my name is Theo, and today in this exciting Mr. Media tutorial, we'll be looking at a completely different way of making your footage look better. Normally I do a lot of color grading tutorials, but I've done a lot of those recently, so I decided I'd hop into After Effects and show you some things that I like to do to spice up footage there too. A lot of stuff that I get called on for is, Theo, make this look better. So here's one of many tricks up my sleeve for making that look better. What we're going to be doing is adding sort of dreamy, snowy particles to a scene to sort of add some extra depth and interest to an otherwise, relatively boring shot. So without further ado, let's hop to Adobe After Effects and get started. So we're going to be using After Effects and Cinema 4D for this. You can do it all in After Effects, and plugins like Trapcode Particular make it super easy, but I'm just a super big fan of particles inside of Cinema 4D, so I like to use those a lot. So what we have here is we have this simple clip of just a tree while I was walking out one day and said, hey, this is pretty neat. So I just grabbed a little clip. It is a really easy shot to track. This should be a pretty simple little tutorial. A lot of steps, but not difficult steps. So the first thing that we're going to do is notice over here that my timecode is all funny. And this is because the Blackmagic Cinema camera has some funny timecode stuff in it. We don't need to worry about it. What we're going to start off doing is hit Control K to open up our composition settings. Let's make our start frame 0. Just like that. And now we're starting at frame 0. And this will make moving in between Cinema 4D and After Effects a lot easier. Just trust me with that. The next thing we're going to do is go over to our Effects and Presets panel, type in Camera, and throw the 3D camera tracker on here. And what this does, while this is analyzing, I'll tell you, is it basically looks at the image and finds different spots on it and makes little trackers. So it's basically putting little stickers on your image and making those stick to points on it as it goes through. Then after it has all those little tracker stickers stuck throughout the frame as much as it can use a lot of crazy math and interpolate depth to solve for a 3D scene. So you can see there's little stickers over here and over here. And as we move through, they stick to our image. So After Effects is taking a look at those and it's finding out, this little sticker moves in relation to this sticker X amount. And from there, what you can do is create a camera, and it'll have a 3D camera inside of After Effects, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff. So what I'm going to do is just select a couple of these points that make a nice plane for me. So this looks like a good ground plane. I'm going to right click and do Set Ground Plane and Origin. And this makes it easier for us in Cinema 4D to sort of know where we're putting stuff. So boom, there's that. Then I'm just going to add a quick null object and a camera. So now let me just create a quick solid. I'll make it, 100 by 100, and I'll make it 3D and parent it to this null object, rotate it however many degrees, and then you can see it sticks to our scene. Pretty cool. And you can do this with, text also. Let me tell you something. Commercial clients, they love this stuff, like innovation. So you can say make it 3D, parent it to your tracker object, fix your rotation, scale it appropriately, fix your rotation again because, let's check this out, like innovation. You can also do like eco, even better, green tech. And you do something like, oh, look at that. So this isn't our trick, but oh man, you've already learned so much. Look at this. You can sell that for so much, like so much. It's so easy. But what we're gonna be doing instead of making a trendy, cliche commercial type thing is we're gonna be adding particles. So how do we get this camera and this null from After Effects into our favorite Cinema 4D? The way we're gonna do that is go up to File, Export, Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. I'm not sure if this is included with CC 2014 or not. No matter what, I'll put a link for the download for this plugin in the description of this video because I know it's not in all versions. I think I read somewhere that it might be included, but just in case, I'll put a download there. It's super easy. It's got install instructions and it's great. So what this does is, let's type in, nature track, is it creates a Cinema 4D file with this camera and this tracking object inside of it. So now we're basically done with this. Let's just save our After Effects project real quick. And now we will hop over to Cinema 4D and then go to File, Open, and you can see we've got our nature track right here, right inside of our, project folder. So hit Open. Now you see we've got our group with our camera and our null object. So we'll just hop outside of the camera here. You can see there it is. So this is this point in the image. You can add a background if you want, but that's just kind of a lot of annoyance, so we're not going to deal with that. So the first thing I'm going to do to clean this scene up some is just move our focal point to be right there. That's pretty optional at this point, but I just want to get started. So as we play through, we can see that it's moving, you know, just like our camera in our scene. Really great. So in order to add particles, the easiest way to do that is to go to your emitter, is to just add a particle emitter up here. Now I know that my Cinema 4D workspace is different than most people's. So anything that I'm saying, you can just hit Shift C. I forget which version this is introduced in, but I'm in R14, so, you know, kind of old school, haven't upgraded in a while. And type in emitter, and you just drop a particle emitter in right there. If you want to use my workspace, so this makes it a little bit easier for you, I've got the file available for download on my website at www.meissnermedia.com. Go to downloads in Cinema 4D, and you can just download my thing there. So we've got this emitter. What we will do is rotate it a couple degrees. Let's try 90, so it's flat, and then we will scale it around. Go to emitter, X size, and bring that up a good bit, and Y size, good little bit. To change how you're moving, you can either click these buttons up here, or it's E for move, R for rotate, and T for scale. So learn those because it saves you a lot of time. Also, to move around, you can hold down Alt to make this action, 1 on your number thing to pan around, 2 to zoom, and 3 to do your funny orbiting thing again. So what we've made is an emitter which will emit particles, as you can see here. That's pretty cool, but it's not exactly what we want. So how are we going to make it what we want? First of all, we don't want them to be warp speeding towards us. What we want is them to be sort of just floating in the air and kind of moving around with some sort of Brownian, however you say that, motion, which is sort of little turbulence, kind of moving it around. It looks really cool. So in order to achieve that effect, we're going to select our emitter, go to particle, and make our speed 0. So now they're just being emit with no speed at all. Great. We're going to up our birth rate to, you know, maybe 50, and do that in both the editor and renderer. Since we're not doing a huge system, you can just leave these numbers the same. That's pretty good. And then what we're going to do, this is a fun little trick for particles. Go over to your timeline and make it start at something like -5 frames. So you see, we're normally starting at 0. This is where our camera motion is starting. But we have these 5 extra frames beforehand where nothing happens that we don't need to render. It's just going to simulate the particles. So we can make our particles start being born at frame -5 and end at 0. We can even up our birth rate to like 100. And then you can see that we get a couple particles born, but then they just sort of stay where they are throughout the rest of the movie. Let's make this even more, like 1,000. Yeah, that's looking like a good amount. So now that's looking pretty cool, but they're all on the same plane, and we don't want that. We want there to be some depth, because that's after all why we're doing this. So what we can do is go back to frame -5, click on our emitter, go to coordinates, move down a little bit, set a keyframe with your Y position, go to frame 0, move it back up a little bit, another keyframe. And what this will do is move our emitter up in Y, so you see it emits particles as it's traveling. So now we get this nice depth here. That'll make it look really cool. So here's what that looks like in motion. Great. And we're still not getting any of the cool little turbulent motion. So what we're going to do is have our emitter selected, go up and add a turbulence force. And now you can see just right away, we're getting some really cool stuff going on. We're going to change our mode from acceleration to aerodynamics wind, just because that'll really help to sell the effect. And you go to our camera tracker now. Let's go to our emitter and make our things a little bit easier to see. Make them red or green. Does green show up better? Yeah. So now you can see them a little bit better. Let's go to turbulence and make the scale maybe a little, no, 0. Maybe even turn the frequency down a little bit, which will sort of slow our motion down. We just want these real subtle particles. Even turn this down to like 3. Yeah, we just want them floating around a little bit. So now we've got that going, but you can see when we render, we just get a black screen. That's no good. So the easiest way to add geometry to particles is just use a cloner object. And, you know, a lot of people try and mess around with particle geometry and all this nonsense, which is great for really complicated systems, but for easy stuff like this, just use a cloner object. Go to object, set your mode to object mode, then drag your emitter into your object. We'll make a new disk. Our disk segments 1, rotation segment something like 8, because these are going to be pretty small. And then outer radius like 0.7. Itty bitty. Then make this a child of your cloner object, and now you can see we get these little dots. We'll add a just basic white material to this, and now you can see we get some particles. That's pretty cool. I'm liking that a lot. So right now, if we do a quick sort of preview, we'll just go ahead and divide this by 4 and render all frames. Hit Shift R to render to your picture viewer. You can see we get, you know, this pretty nice little particle system going. So that's looking pretty good, I think. One thing you can do to take it up another notch is to add some depth of field inside Cinema 4D. Now, if you're really cool, you can use a depth mat and then use Frischluft inside of After Effects, but I don't have Frischluft. So lots of times I just use the default depth of field inside of Cinema 4D because it's really pretty good, even though it is a pretty big render hit. Once again, this is such a simple system. I'm fine to have it take, you know, 5 minutes instead of 30 seconds because I just don't care, to be quite honest. So under render settings, you go to Effect, Depth of Field. And the settings I like for this are 10 under blur strength and 20 under distance blur, and turn on use gradients. Then go back to our view, pop out of our camera, select it, go to details, and enable front blur. And bring this way down, something like right there. And you'll see right away we hop back into this and do a quick render. Now we get even more depth with these little particles, you know, being a little more out of focus. If you want to bump that up a notch, you can make this maybe 20 and see how that looks. Now they're really blurry. I'll bring that down to 10. And that's looking pretty good. So that's our really simple particle system. And now something that hangs up people a lot whenever they're first kind of learning to work in between Cinema 4D and After Effects is, yes, you can use Cineware to bring this into After Effects, but that's really not a very refined workflow. Maybe it's just because I'm old school and I've been using, you know, the After Effects / X other 3D program, you know, name one for a while now. It's really great to just, you know, render it out as a 2D thing, and then you don't have to worry about the 3D in After Effects. Yes, you can't change stuff, but you're not going to change it anyway. So what we're going to do is just render out a flat pass of this. So we're going to go to our output, make this back to 1920 by 1080. Make sure that your frame rate matches. Make sure everything is good. Make sure you're rendering the right range. Go to save, and we will output this to render 1 and make this, you know, I put that dash at the end because I know I'm going to render this as an image sequence. So TIFF layers are fine. You can include an alpha channel if you want, but you don't need it. If you want to do more extra cool compositing stuff, by all means do. But for this, we're just going to keep little files. Hit Shift R and let that render. And I will fast forward this and be with you whenever these complete. All right, so now that our particles are done rendering, we can just minimize or exit out of Cinema 4D if we want to. Back into After Effects, double click to import, render 1, select the first one of those, TIFF sequence, because I did an image sequence, import, and we can just drag these into our composition. And you'll notice right away, this isn't right. It's not the right length. Well, since we rendered out an image sequence, it doesn't know our frame rate. So we have to right click, go to interpret footage, main, and then change where it says 30 to 23.976. And now we are good to go. So we'll change our transfer mode to something like screen and hit 0 to RAM preview. And now we've got some, you know, ooh, let's turn off that audio. And now we've got some little particles going in there. They still don't look great. So what we'll do is hit T to go to our opacity, bring them down some, and then we will go and do a fast blur. You could probably do a lens blur if you really wanted to, you know, go all out. But I just want to make these really kind of blurry. And now you get this cool looking thing. That's pretty neat. Go back to our source and I will turn on the colored version of this and see how that's looking. Cool. So maybe if we made these particles a little color, that would be pretty neat. I'll type in tint, remap white to orange maybe. We'll bring that above our fast blur so it works a little bit better. Solo these. Yeah, they are orange. That's starting to look pretty neat. I'm liking that. Maybe we can even turn our opacity up some. Ooh, or we could even make them glow. This is the fun part. Or Trapcode Shine, one of my favorites. Use this all the gosh darn time. It's from mode to screen. We'll keep them blurry. But you can see, you know, maybe you want to add more particles. Maybe you want to add less particles. Maybe you want to add in, you know, you want to add your text back in. But anyway, we've got some cool particles going. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's a great little thing to know how to do, especially that workflow between After Effects and Cinema 4D. Particles are always a lot of fun. If you like this tutorial, be sure to give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. No matter what, leave comments down below because I always love reading the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the Meissner Media YouTube channel. If you want even more Meissner Media goodness, we've got links for social media down in the description below. While you're on your various social platforms, be sure to share this video with your friends so they can see how to add dreamy particles to their footage and make it look that much cooler. Once again, I've been Theo with Meissner Media. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.